Tobias Harris gives the Spurs exactly what they were missing. San Antonio did not commit 2 years and $31 million to Harris because it needed another star. It made the move because last season exposed a problem the Spurs could disguise during the regular season, but could not completely hide in the playoffs. Their forwards lacked the combination of size, physicality, and independent shot creation required when opponents took away the first action. Harris will not transform the franchise by himself, but he could give Mitch Johnson an answer that did not exist on last season's roster. By the end of this video, you will understand why one surprising post-up statistic explains his offensive value, how Victor Wembanyama could protect Harris defensively, and which weakness could still limit his minutes in the most important playoff matchups. The official numbers establish the role San Antonio is buying. Harris averaged 13.3 points and 5.1 rebounds across 63 games for Detroit during his 15th NBA season. Those are not the numbers of a primary option, and the Spurs should not treat him like one. De'Aaron Fox, Wembanyama, Stephon Castle, and Dylan Harper give this roster more important creators with significantly higher ceilings. Harris is arriving to become a fourth or fifth option, who can occasionally rescue a possession, punish the wrong matchup, and prevent the offense from collapsing when the Stars cannot create an immediate advantage. That distinction matters because Harris has often been criticized for failing to meet star-level expectations. In San Antonio, he will finally be evaluated against a role that better matches the player he is now. The first evidence of his value is hidden in how these forwards produce their points. Even late in his Detroit tenure, Harris created more than 1/3 of his own field goals without an assist. Keldon Johnson finished in a similar range during the regular season, but his self-created offense declined significantly in the playoffs. Harrison Barnes and Carter Bryant created their own baskets at roughly half Harris's frequency, while Julian Champagnie depended even more heavily on teammates generating his opportunities. That does not make Harris a better overall player than every name in that group. It means he brings a different solution. When a set breaks down with 7 seconds remaining, San Antonio can give him the ball against a favorable defender and still produce a respectable attempt without forcing Fox or Wembanyama to restart the entire possession. Then comes the statistic that makes the signing much more interesting. Harris recorded 136 post-up possessions last season, ranking 19th in the NBA and matching Wembanyama's total. Keldon Johnson and Harrison Barnes combined for only 42. That difference is enormous because Harris does not need San Antonio to design an old-fashioned offense around him. He can screen for a guard, force a switch, and immediately take a smaller defender onto the block. His fadeaway, floater, and mid-range touch allow him to finish without repeatedly challenging elite rim protectors. Against teams that switch to neutralize Fox or Castle, Harris can turn their preferred defensive answer into the beginning of San Antonio's next advantage. He is not replacing Wembanyama as a post threat. He is preventing opponents from using every smaller defender on the floor as help against Wemby. That creates the first real payoff of the move. Harris can make San Antonio's half-court offense less predictable without demanding control of it. If the defense stays home, Fox and Castle can attack their original matchups. If it switches, Harris can punish the smaller player. If help comes toward the post, Wembanyama, Vassell, and the Spurs' other shooters receive cleaner space. Harris also remains capable of running the floor, attacking an open gap, and converting the assisted opportunities created by San Antonio's guards. The Spurs do not need him to manufacture 20 points every night. They need him to turn 4 or 5 difficult possessions into functional offense, because those are often the possessions that decide close playoff games. If you value Spurs analysis that explains the move instead of merely reporting it, like the video and subscribe, because the defensive fit changes this rotation even more. San Antonio spent much of last season surviving without traditional size at power forward. Most of its options measured around 6'6" or 6'7". That was enough when the team could compensate with movement, collective rebounding, and Wembanyama's extraordinary defensive range. But it required smaller forwards to fight opponents who were naturally heavier. Harris is 6'8" and approximately 226 pounds. According to the synergy data cited in the original analysis, he ranked in the 79th percentile as a post defender. Detroit trusted him against physical forwards such as Julius Randle, and in selected situations, even opposing centers. During the postseason, he also spent possessions dealing with Paolo Banchero and Evan Mobley. He did not erase those players, but he could absorb contact, remain disruptive, and compete without constantly giving away fouls. That physicality creates an effect that will not always appear in Harris's individual box score. When he handles the larger forward, Castle can remain attached to a dangerous perimeter creator instead of being forced into an exhausting size disadvantage. Wembanyama can protect the rim and roam into passing lanes instead of wrestling with every physical matchup before the shot even begins. Champagnie can concentrate on spacing the floor and closing possessions on the glass. Harris does not need to dominate the boards to improve San Antonio's rebounding structure. He only needs to box out players that smaller forwards struggle to move. The Spurs reached the finals while compensating for this limitation. Adding a player who can perform basic power forward responsibilities naturally should reduce how much effort the entire lineup must spend covering the same weakness. This also gives Mitch Johnson several ways to use him without locking the team into one identity. If Harris starts beside Wembanyama, the Spurs gain size, secondary creation, and another screener who can punish switches. If Johnson prefers more speed or shooting in the opening lineup, Harris can stabilize a second unit that otherwise might ask too much of a young ball handler. His role could change by opponent. Against a large front court, he may be necessary to protect San Antonio from being overwhelmed physically. Against a smaller opponent, his post-game could become a deliberate source of offense. That flexibility is more important than whether Harris receives the ceremonial label of starter, because a contender needs players whose value survives lineup changes, instead of depending on one fixed combination. But this is where the fit becomes more complicated. Harris is a willing outside shooter, not a consistently dangerous one. Opponents left him open during parts of the postseason, and he did not always make them pay. If Harris and Wembanyama share the floor, an opposing team could assign a mobile power forward to Wemby while hiding its center on Harris. That defender could leave Harris to protect the paint, reducing Fox's driving space and placing another body near Wembanyama. San Antonio encountered versions of this problem with Barnes. Harris owns a more complete offensive game, but much of that game depends on using his strength. If the defender ignoring him is 7 feet tall, that physical advantage becomes much harder to exploit. The three-point shot may therefore determine whether Harris is simply useful in the regular season or trustworthy deep in the playoffs. He does not need to become an elite shooter, but he must convert enough open attempts to force the opposing center to move. Even one additional step toward Harris can reopen a driving lane for Fox, or create the space Wembanyama needs to establish position. His postseason efficiency has fluctuated, so San Antonio cannot assume that every matchup will favor him. This is the necessary counterpoint. Harris supplies skills the Spurs lacked, but those skills do not automatically solve every opponent. If the shot disappears, Mitch Johnson may still have to reduce his minutes and use a faster, more switchable forward. Age also creates a defensive limitation. Harris can defend strong ball handlers who attack him directly, but he is less comfortable chasing quick guards through screens. Opponents will attempt to involve him in pick and rolls, force a switch, and create pull-up threes against his retreat. He understands angles and tries to guide smaller players toward help, but intelligence cannot completely replace lateral speed. Harris is not as switchable as the NBA's best defensive power forwards, and San Antonio should not present him as one. The concern will become especially important late in games, when elite guards repeatedly target the slowest defender until the coaching staff changes the coverage or removes that player from the lineup. This is also where Wembanyama changes the calculation. Harris can defend a quick ball handler more aggressively when the league's best rim protector is waiting behind him. If the guard beats Harris but is directed inside the arc, San Antonio may accept the resulting floater or contested mid-range jumper instead of surrendering an open three. Wembanyama cannot erase every mistake, and relying on him to repair the entire defense would be irresponsible. But his presence allows the Spurs to hide a limited perimeter defender more effectively than most teams can. Harris does not need to win every isolation. He needs to delay the possession, influence the direction of the drive, and give Wemby enough time to become the final obstacle. The signing will also intensify competition throughout San Antonio's forward rotation. Barnes offers experience in shooting. Champagnie provides spacing and rebounding from the wing. Keldon brings energy, transition scoring, and aggressive work around the rim. Bryant offers the highest defensive upside and the possibility of becoming a long-term two-way piece. Harris does not make those players unnecessary, but he reduces the number of situations in which the Spurs must ask one of them to perform outside his natural role. Mitch Johnson can now choose the forward according to the problem in front of him. That should make the roster stronger, although it also means established players could lose minutes when their particular skill set is not required. The possible impact on the season is larger than Harris's scoring average suggests. Over 82 games, his size can reduce physical wear on Wembanyama and the smaller forwards. His self-creation can stabilize possessions when Fox rests or when the young guards encounter difficult coverages. His post game gives the coaching staff a counter against switches, while his rebounding should help complete defensive stops. During the playoffs, however, the evaluation becomes more demanding. Harris must hit open threes, survive attempts to isolate him against guards, and accept that some series may require a smaller role. The Spurs did not sign a player without weaknesses. They signed one whose weaknesses can potentially be protected by the strengths already surrounding him. That is the final answer. Tobias Harris is not San Antonio's missing superstar. He is its missing archetype. The Spurs already had stars, creators, shooters, energetic forwards, and elite defensive potential. What they did not have was a true power forward who could create a respectable shot, punish a switch, defend physical frontcourt players, and contribute on the glass without requiring the offense to revolve around him. Harris supplies those tools in one body. If his open three remains credible and Wembanyama helps contain his defensive limitations, the signing could become far more important than its lack of excitement initially suggests. San Antonio did not need Harris to raise the absolute ceiling of its best player. It needed him to remove one of the weaknesses capable of lowering the entire team. And if you want to see the lineup Mitch Johnson may use when he sacrifices Harris's size for maximum speed and defensive pressure, watch our full breakdown of the Spurs' new death lineup next.